talk about masturbation and intimacy. And I love this topic a lot because it's the elephant in the room. Everybody's thinking about it, but nobody really wants to talk about it. And I can remember being a young man, probably, I don't know, maybe 11 or 12 years old, driving down the road with my dad and him asking me if I had ever masturbated before. I don't know if that's happened to you, but if it has, you probably felt like me. I wanted to jump out of the car, cold sweat all over me. I wasn't sure I was going to make it for the ride home. But that's how it feels. And my dad and my mom both didn't have any shame about the topic. And so it ended up being a healthy conversation where I actually got to explore it with him. And so today I want to be able to do that with you, because probably in your home, the chances that you're talking about it, learning about it in a healthy way, may be pretty slim. And so a couple of things that are helpful right away is to understand why do we have such a struggle with masturbation? Why is there so much tension? I think any sexual topic right now, most parents don't know how to talk about. And you can just take that all across the board. Most sexual topic we are uncomfortable with. And so that's probably why you haven't heard a lot of it. But why do we feel so strongly in the church or just in the world about abstaining from masturbation? Well, for starters, if you believe that you should abstain from masturbation, here's a couple of really good reasons why you should believe that way. The first one is masturbation is usually linked with pornography or lust, but let's talk about pornography for starters. What happens when you start looking at pornography and masturbating to pornography is two things. Dopamine gets released into your body. You get a surge of it into your brain. It's the feel-good drug. And there's also another thing called delta phos-B, which gets released, I know these are big words, into your reward circuit. So every time you look at porn and every time you masturbate, your body and brain literally gives you a reward. It says, that was awesome, good job, regardless of how you feel. Well, that feeling and those chemicals become very addicting, super addicting. Dopamine and delta phos-B, especially dopamine, is really addictive. And what happens is the more you masturbate and the more you look at porn, and because porn's so available today, you don't just look at one video, you look at 10 or 20 or 30 videos during a session, during a sit down. And you become eventually you become very numb to the human body, to actually real intimacy. Because delta phos-B, which again is that chemical, it builds up in your brain and gives you what's called a numb pleasure response. So later on in life, what that turns out to be, and we're knowing this now because of science, they're actually starting to study this, so you can go and do your own research, but what we're finding out is that addiction in pornography and masturbation leads to things like erectile dysfunction. It leads to desensitization, which basically means when you get married, you won't necessarily want to have sex with your wife because it's almost a cheap pornography, if I can say. You can't, there's only one of her, instead of you're used to looking at 10, 20, 30 girls, maybe 100 girls. And so that's one thing to seriously consider when we're talking about masturbation is there are actual long-term effects. The other thing that happens is it's really hard to give intimacy away to someone when for so long you're used to fulfilling your own needs. So your sexual drive, that tension that you feel, that anxiety that you feel when you want to masturbate was meant to push you into relationship. And if you short circuit that drive, that motivation to push yourself into relationship by masturbating, well, you just took a whole bunch of momentum, a whole bunch of motivation out of connecting to somebody. And so when you get married and if you go masturbate, the chances that you're going to go and do the dishes with your wife, per se, or clean the garage, or pursue her like she needs to be pursued is slim because there's no momentum. You're not like, hey babe, I really want to be with you. You're like, I'm all taken care of. I actually feel okay. So beyond just the lusting is wrong, lusting's a sin, therefore can you masturbate without lusting? Yes, you probably can. I know that I could when I was a kid. That's really not the issue for me. The issue for me is, am I going to rob my future self of intimacy and of motivation to pursue greater intimacy with my wife? Also, am I going to set up my actual physical body and my physical brain, my mind, for success later on down the road? Because again, one of the biggest problems we're having today in our nation is young men, young women are actually desensitized to human touch. They would rather look at a computer screen, have sexual intercourse to that, if you can say it like that, in their mind and physically than they would with an actual human being. Because there's not as much novelty. There's not as much excitement with a person when you're so used to looking at a computer screen. It's a ripoff. It's cheap. It's not real. It doesn't actually meet your need. It meets your immediate desire, but it doesn't meet your long-term need. And so there's a couple really good reasons and just kind of a way to think and to look at masturbation in the home, masturbation before you get married. Science is really doing a lot to back up pornography and masturbation. So I challenge you to go on and to look and to read it and to get educated on it.